donating it to archaeology company now. Now we've got the bloody nightmare of getting the thing lifted and moving it to St. Fagans.
Oh, lovely. That's stressful. I'm glad that there's been an update about it, because I was thinking about it the other day and I thought I haven't really heard much. So I'm glad that we've had an update.
Yeah, I'm glad you had an update. It's a bloody nightmare.
You'll have to number all the bricks, Carl.
Oh, no, it's not bricks. This is cast iron.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. I'm still a little bit from earlier.
Yeah,
been a long day.
I know you should get over from. I think you should get over your busman's holiday to Chichester, okay? And I've heard about all the debauchery that happened, right?
Well, the word was mentioned by Darren at the start of the trip.
Yeah, I think we should stop this now. Right.
It didn't happen. Honest.
Jess, yeah, it's not going to be a sackable offence, right? But just try and keep the debauchery to a low ebb. So, all right then. I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna go off now. So, Jess, over to you, and I'm gonna have to give you complete control.
All right, that's fine.
Be really nasty to Richard, because I didn't allow him. I didn't allow him to do anything in the whole thing. I muted him. I took him off because I blamed him for all my problems.
Oh, poor Richard.
Are you coming to Bridgend or Cardiff or Barry next week?
I'm going to Bridgend tomorrow.
Carl.
Oh.
Am I?
I'm just wondering about that artifact now. I gotta bringing it to class, but we could just take some more photos of it.
Yeah, I need to see it. I've got an idea, so I need to see it. Yeah, I need to see it.
All right, we'll just have to take some more photos of it.
Well, I'm sure you and I can meet in a dodgy petrol station somewhere, Anne.
Yeah.
with a dodgy carrier bag and some weird raincoats. Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
We can do.
All right, if she lets me, I will. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay then, folks. I'm gonna let you be. So, Pat, I will see you soon, and Anne, I will see you soon, and Richard, I'll see you soon, and make up your mind about this trip and whatever. And Jessica, over to you because I'm off.
Thank you, Carl.
Take care. Best of luck, Jess. See you soon. Bye. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
See you Friday.
Bye. I'll see you Friday. Yes. With the. Oh, and by the way, shall I tell them in the Barry class that there's this woman who smokes marijuana and the room smells like a. Yeah. Pete, I don't.
I hope this is private and not public.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay then. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Nobody wants to ask me. All right. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, Jess.
Hello, Jess.
Hi, Anne. Is there any news off anyone this week?
Well, only that artifact that lady put on.
I did see that. It seems quite unusual.
She said she'd bring it along to class next week. Like next week. And,
yeah.
I thought, well, we could take some more photos of it. Ask her if she would let us actually borrow it. And then we'll have to try and meet Carl sometime if maybe it's the following Friday or something.
Yeah. Well, he's about on Fridays if you could get Barry, but
right.
But working out with him, I'm sure Carl would know more about schedule than I do. But yeah, I did see it. It did seem unusual. I'm not sure whether it was a tough or something. It does look really strange, doesn't it?
It does. But I didn't know whether, tusks or whatever, like teeth or that would turn to stone, I mean, it's hard to, I mean, it looks the size of a, prehistoric monster.
It does.
but it could be, a folly. Could be, just something, a piece of masonry or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems. Well, I hope they didn't. It was found in hay, wasn't it? So I hope they weren't paying in weight.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, crikey, I hope you didn't buy it. You know, have to pay in weight. But we'll find out. We'll find out next.
Hopefully, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. Pat, any news from you this week?
No, can't think of anything. Sorry.
Oh no. You know, I forgot the wonderful trip to Chichester. Where, you know, it was fantastic, and thank you for that.
No, thank you, Anne. Thank you. And Richard, did you have any news?
No, nothing.
No, that's fine.
Anything that interesting. So.
Yeah, is it? In all fairness, like Anne said, we had our trip to Chichester, so I was quite occupied with that. And well, the first day that we went, Friday, oh my gosh, it was the worst weather ever, wasn't it? And we went to Old Sarum, which was really interesting to look at. But unfortunately, the weather was just not on our side.
Yeah.
I had this umbrella that wasn't going inside out, dragging me across the building, wasn't it, Anna? I thought I was going to be swept away. But it was nice to be there and actually see it.
I had no idea that it was such a sight, you know, such a real, you know, site and a wonderful like Iron Age hill fort, and then a castle inside it, you know, and it was just so unexpected, and I'd certainly like to go back. And but the rain was abysmal. We got soaked, all our trousers, you know, waterproofs, everything. And then we went to the next day, we went to Fishbourne, and it was a nice museum, you know. They obviously they did protect the artifacts, and they made a good job of it. And then the museum, I didn't really get much in the museum, really, but there was a bit more. Yeah, they'd found a bit more Roman sort of foundations and things in the that they showed in the museum in Chichester, and of course there was the lovely cathedral, and that was really nice. And they had some art in there that was like modern art, like a Chagall and John Piper wall hanging, and yeah, it was Graham Sutherland wall hanging.
And they had a beautiful Roman mosaic that was found underneath the cathedral, and the way that they conserved it was that they put a glass pane in the floor so you could walk over it. Obviously they couldn't get rid of the entire cathedral to show the villa that was there, but a beautiful mosaic. I did take a photo of it, so I'll show everyone. I had to place my phone on the glass and sort of move it, because I kept getting a reflection of myself and I didn't really want that. So a lot of skill went into taking that photo, and I took photos of the museum that we went into as well in Chichester. If any of you have been doing Carl's Tuesday lessons or Thursday lessons, you know that we've been looking at prehistory, and the Boxgrove artifacts were there, the flint and the hand axe, which was, it was nice to see a lot of prehistory as well, wasn't it, Anne? And being able to apply it to what we know already. So it was quite an insightful trip. Loads of mosaics everywhere. I think it was absolutely impressive and fantastic to actually be there and see it. But we went to Portchester, didn't we, Anne, on the way back home?
Yeah,
and that was even more fantastic. Unfortunately, I didn't get to the top because it was a horrible stairway. Didn't feel very safe. I just took a photo of some of the finds that they had in the museum, ranging from prehistoric all the way up to the 1900s. And I was in the kitchen area, so they had storage in the floor that you could walk, the top floors were gone. And I found some Victorian sort of tiny chips of pottery on the floor, which was fantastic finds. It shows how much archaeology they brought out there. There was graffiti on the walls from prisoners of war as well in the Napoleonic Wars. And
prison, didn't it?
Yeah, it was really fantastic, and even the church inside, it was really cute inside this Roman fortress. It was beautiful, and even the architecture of the houses as we were driving in, there was one house from the 1400s which looked really cute, and my dream home. And then we've noticed that a lot of architecture was built with big chunks of flint as well, and it was just loads of it everywhere, wasn't it, Anne?
Yeah, didn't expect to see that. I mean, I suppose this stands to reason, really. It's chalk downs, you know, the South Downs, and they're all chalk, aren't they? And of course, you would find flint there, you know. So, but you don't expect to see it. You just imagine it's all going to be white, everything's going to be white. But it was really sort of, quite threatening looking, really, wasn't it? You know. It's quite, you could hurt yourself on the wall, you know. It's really. Have you been there, Richard? Have you been to Chichester?
No, I haven't been.
Oh, right.
The part I've been to South Downs is Lewis.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
That's all.
That's very nice.
You know, you come up from Eastbourne.
Yeah.
It is definitely.
It's like they should be sea cliffs, but they're sort of in the middle of the countryside. It's quite strange.
Weird landscape, but it's also really beautiful. It's very different to what we're used to, but it was even just down to the trundle, wasn't it? That fantastic, and this Iron Age hill fort, and it was absolutely huge to get. It was just really high. And I said that in the 1500s, there was map evidence to suggest that there was a small chapel there. And by 1723, it was just ruins. And we were looking at the illustration that was drawn from 1723, trying to figure out where we were. And we found a big block of stone. It did look like a dress stone or something, didn't it, Anne? Because it was very straight, very neatly cut. And it didn't seem like it fitted there, but it sat on where the chapel was. So not much archaeology has been done there in terms of investigations. They've looked at the ditches in very early history, was when they first started seeing all of this archaeology and trying to put it into their minds. But I think if more work was done there, I think we'd be able to bring out some little treats there, because it was absolutely fantastic. And even just looking at the landscape, I think anyone that lived there would have that had beautiful views, and it would just be one of those things that would be blissful. But anyway, we'll go into our class now. So thank you, everyone, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, Anne. Definitely needed a break when we got home. I felt, my legs, they were dying when I got home. So only just recovered.
You had the bad legs this time.
Yeah, it was I'm convinced it was the
trundle
hill fort.
Yeah, I just closed my eyes and just walked up, you know, and you were very kindly, patiently walked with me, and I got to the top. I don't know how I did it.
That was fine. I knew that you'd done great. I didn't think I could do it either, but we took little steps at each time, and we managed to do it. And I think it was worth it because of the views.
Over the estuary.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't wait to get back into the van. Though it was really cold. The wind was really hitting us at that point because we were so high up. So I'll get into today. I know I've done manor houses before, but I thought I'd do different ones. And next week, possibly looking at more evidence of possibly Welsh witches and buildings around that. But today, we'll be looking a little bit more into manor houses. I just like the look of them. Sometimes I like the way the archaeology is presented. It is quite difficult with some of the archaeology here to be presented with all this. But I have reports. So I didn't have the images, but I have the reports, which is better than nothing. So I decided to do the ones that for the first building I wanted to do Glen Caig Fawr, and this is a building that holds many memories for me as a child. I had a very strange obsession with the paranormal as a child. It was only because I had a simple book. It was just people who had an experience at different Welsh locations, and like Lancaig was one of them. And we had a school trip to go there. And I remember talking to a teacher about the ghost that was in this book, and it was just something that's really stuck with me. And I remember going there and seeing lots of coal on the floor, and it was just really beautiful, even the ground. And we made our own sort of little cloth with herbs in, and smelling that as we talked about plague. But it was a lovely house, and I think it shows a Tudor past, but it's much older than what it was at the period. But I thought I'd chuck in another house as well, which is at Tree Tower Court, which was quite interesting in terms of how a manor house is quite different, how they have different formulas sometimes. But they're important, I think, when you're looking at the higher class, the wealthy, and how they're able to exert their identity outside of not just them, but into their living space. And this is showing off so much about the history of the owners, but also shows how these houses are witness to very tense periods in history, and how that enriches the history of these places. But it also, I think, can be a reason why some places are said to be haunted. And I know it definitely intrigues a lot of people, and that's why they go. For example, the Skirrys Inn, I think they have a lot of money come in based on lots of ghost walks or people staying over there the night. And I know my mother's done one of them. It'd be something that I think I'd feel very uncomfortable about if I saw a ghost in front of me, because I don't know how I would react. But something that fascinated me as a child makes me uncomfortable as an adult. But we'll look into each one of these. So this is Lancaig Fawr, and I remember going here as a child. I had my little packed lunch in my little bag. I used to just get a funny feeling on school trips, and for some reason this photo really triggers that off for me. So I feel quite nostalgic looking at this building. And it is a Tudor manor house, but the origins of this house is from the medieval period, and has been developed and added on throughout time. But it's a fantastic house with some lovely grounds on it as well. And it's near the village of Nelson, which is just north of the site of the former Lancaig colliery, which is in the Rhymney Valley in South Wales. I remember used to think that the coach trip there used to take forever, but I've realised now as I'm older it's actually not that long, and I was just very impatient as a child. And these sites used to excite me. I think this is just my love for history reflecting anyway. And I was in primary school, very late primary school, when we went on this trip. So this is something that's really stuck with me, and definitely I think it brings out an emotive response. But this is a semi-fortified house, and it was built, like I said, on an earlier medieval structure. It could have been on top of the previous dwelling, or possibly incorporated within the eastern end of the building. There's some debates on that, but it is a Grade 1 listed building, and is best known for being the home of Colonel Edward Pritchard, which had died in 1655. But he hosted a visit by King Charles I of England in 1645. And it was thought to predate the Act of Union between Wales and England at 1536, and it was talked about in John Leland's itinerary of 1537. And there's a lot of history going on here, and especially paranormal as well. That adds to the history. A lot of people have had their experiences put out there online, but the only one that I can remember that really sticks with me is the book. It was the book that I used to sort of cling on to as a child. I didn't have the book to hand, so this is just coming from memory. But I remember they put like this ball of soap down, and they had some flour, and they sprinkled it, and the ball of soap was moved, and someone had drawn a line down the flour. And I just remember just thinking, oh my gosh, this is the most scariest place. And I remember thinking, if we got there, oh, I can't wait to experience something. I experienced nothing, but I think, again, with things in places of Wales, we either go down the route of magical or folklore, but also paranormal is another one that to go into. And I know some people have actually done certain little things in Wales, even down to modern buildings, for example. I know there's an abandoned hospital. I'm not going to disclose where it is because you don't want trespassers going there, but people have gone there and they do these ghost apps, and it's almost like they're trying to add more to the history of these buildings by adding a ghost story, and you definitely see that with this building. But I think that we should talk more a little bit about the Pritchard family that were involved with this, that owned this building. So when the Civil War broke out between King and Parliament in 1642, Colonel Edward Pritchard of Lancaig Fawr, he was appointed Commissioner of Array to the King. So he was raising men and money for the Royalist cause in Glamorganshire. And Mary, his wife, was a sister of Bussy Mansell, who was a parliamentarian. And there's a little bit of a conflict there, some tensions. But in the middle of the 1645, support was waning, and King Charles toured South Wales in effort to rally support. And he visited Lancaig Fawr on the 5th of August of that year, and a silver coin with a Charles image dated 1645 is among the artefacts that have been found by archaeologists in the grounds of the house. And they have had that in a report you can see online. But afterwards, the Pritchards and many other Glamorgan gentry changed sides to support Parliament. Later in the year, Pritchard was appointed governor of Cardiff Castle, and in February 1646, he staunchly held the castle for the parliamentarians against a siege headed by Edward Khan. But he was also commented for his consistency as well in a battle, and he also got involved with the Battle of St. Fagans, which was quite interesting. But there's been a lot of construction and renovation in this house to take note. So it was designed to be easily defended during a turbulent period in Welsh and British history as a whole, and is considered one of the finest surviving examples of a semi-fortified manor in Wales. David ap Richard was the first owner and was known to be the first lord of the manor, and we'll talk about how that incorporated here. So we have a lovely sort of extract here of manuscript, which I love that when we have archaeology that can have documents with it. I feel like it just adds a little bit more, just adds more meat to the bones with anything like this. But the earliest reference, like I said, was Leland's itinerary. So this was visiting Glamorgan in the wake of the Acts of Union in 1536. And John Leland noted that there were but 3 gentlemen of fame in this area, and 2 of them was being Edward Lewis and David ap Richard. And he describes David as dwelling at Carl-james in Hwcrach. Awful at this, butchering it, but Carl-james is another reference, and in this parish we now call Galia, which seems to be reasonable to assume that this is an attempt to translate Kayak, which is the house above the river Kayak. So that's what they're trying to do. Maybe it's just sort of been a mismatch, trying to sort of translate that. But the spelling Gair also indicates that the local pronunciation today has not changed substantially for 400 years. And the next reference we find in Edward Pritchard's marriage settlement of 1578, which mentions the capital mansion called Gayak. Here, Gayak means the house and is the bank of the river Kayak. This name is used throughout the following of that century, and it seems to be changed to Lancaig sometime in the 18th century. And this is now got to his modern name. There has been investigations during the first stages of restoration of Langhaig Bawr by the Welsh School of Architecture, and they uncovered a number of highly unusual features, as well as confirming that the house was much older than what they originally had thought. Got wrong here. Sorry, got this all wrong. So we meant to be on this one. So what we'll talk about with all of this is that, like I said, they started looking at parts of this house, trying to understand the dates, and it was clear that this house had been constructed with the security of the occupants as the main objective. But when they were looking more into the building and sort of into the data and trying to understand more of it, they understood that this was sort of predating what they originally thought. Which was after 1536. So they knew that it was predating that. And it was mentioned in Leland's Centenary, for example. That's another meat to the bone. But the tree ring dating was carried out, and this was carried out by Time Team, I believe. They were able to suggest that the felling date for the timbers that were used for the roof, which was really scientific how they were able to do that, but they were able to get a date of 1548 to 1565, which is much later than what was originally thought. So you can see how things have contradicted themselves, and it just makes you wonder, maybe there was reconstructions to that part, maybe they had to change it, but it's quite interesting to see how we have manuscript evidence of this being earlier than what the physical evidence is suggesting. And to me, that only suggests that there was maybe some reconstruction. Maybe that was when the medieval house of Langhaig Bawr was gone, maybe in the 1560s or something. And this is now why he's being present here. But again, there's lots of theories in terms of that. So they are trying to find more about the origins of the house. They were able to find evidence of the medieval period. So there was a presence of medieval ridge and furrow plough marks, which is showing long-standing agricultural use of this landscape and surrounding the present manor. Hang on a minute, I've just got to close my window. And they're even looking at the palisaded enclosure, which would protect this building. This was the main aim. They were able to have a look at this, which was in the adjacent field, which was thought to be 1494 BCE, which is through carbon dating. So you definitely see ideal conditions of trackways as well. And we're seeing that water and flat ground has made this area a very tempting location to live in for a millennia. But just looking at how this is even looking today, it shows how this was built to be defended. This was something that was really impressive. And we have this manuscript here that can just add more to that. And I just think it just adds more meat to the bones. It just makes you want to further investigate and look into more with these things. Just quickly talk about more about the finds. If I can just find that onto my, I think is this one here. Is it this one? Yes, it is. So you can definitely see how when Wessex Archaeology actually got involved with this building, they were able to find quite a few things. So I just wanted to talk about the pottery, for example. There's a lot of pottery here that was post-medieval in date. So they did find some prehistoric sherds, which was very coarse. It was grog-tempered fabric. It was Bronze Age. But they couldn't find more about that. But the post-medieval bits were this Bristol type of slipware, this Staffordshire, and we definitely see how in the later periods it was factory-produced wares. But they're given the date range from the 1700s to present day, which I thought was quite interesting. But they found that there was a green bottle glass that was here with a tapering neck of a wine bottle, thought to be the later 1600s or the early 1700s. And And there was even window glass here as well, which was post-medieval in date, but pre-modern. The remaining glass that they found was quite modern. They found a part of a Vauxhall light as well, which I thought was quite interesting to find that there. But they even found coins, and I have mentioned that they did find a single 7 coins, and a single counter was found. One is of 1862, which is a penny, which was in the topsoil of Trench 1. But the remaining 6 coins and the token or counter, they were found by metal detecting of the soil from Trench 2. And it was thought to be a disturbed hoard. The 6 coins were all hammered silver coins of the medieval or Tudor periods, whereas the 7th item was a copper alloy token or counter, probably late medieval in date. And it shows that the condition of these coins were poor, and many of the silver coins were fragmented or corroded, but the counter was also badly worn and corroded as well. And they found that there was lots of evidence of pennies from the late 13th century, and they even found how there was even a 6-pence piece struck for Elizabeth I in 1565 AD. So a lot of archaeologists come from this. They even found 2 thimbles and a buckle, which was post-medieval. They were able to find the maker's mark at the base of the spiral of the of the stairway, and they were also able to find thimbles around about from the 1500s. And the ironwork as well, it was just even fantastic. Lots of nails, lots of weights for it's thought to be something that was larger, but they couldn't really talk about that. But it was a lot of miscellaneous. They did find some 84 pieces of animal bone as well, and they were able to show how this was food that they were using. A lot of it was from chickens and pigs and other animals that they could keep. But they even found a clay tobacco pipe, which was absolutely fantastic. I love finding things like that. So this was definitely a place that was producing a lot of rich archaeology. But they were finding more and more, and this is what we're seeing here, these witch marks. And they're from the 1600s. So these witch marks were discovered here in Llancaigwawr, and these were thought to ward off evil spirits. We have talked about this, how that people use this to protect them. So they've been carved in the wooden beams, in the panelling, stonework, and the plastering all around the house, mostly in entranceways. And they were carved also near chimney breasts and windowsills. But it was deemed for these areas where witches and evil spirits would come into the manor. And it was it is an exciting find. And you can see how there's different types of marks. It's quite staggering, but this is a building that's been studied for so long and is still holding so many secrets. So the Marian marks were also discovered in the manor. So these were the overlapping V's, as you can see in the top one here. This was meant to be the protection of the Virgin Mary. So it's not meant to be a W, it was meant to be 2 V's together. And you also have demon traps that were found. They were meant to trap the demons using this power. So there's hundreds of different markings found around this property, which is absolutely fantastic. One in the particular was the attic space. This was the servant's bed chamber, and there was 130 marks on the beams and the door frames in this area. And we're looking at a cross symbol as well at the bottom. This was also found in the attic. And you can see how, especially in the attic space, this was definitely something of importance. Maybe this was more hidden from people, and it was also a place where they could be made, maybe when there was that worry about religion getting you into trouble, especially when we read about, like I talked about the Welsh witches and how demonology, how Gwen had a Bible that had basically a prayer that was meant to banish evil spirits was perceived as witchcraft. Maybe this is a reason why they're in the attics that people don't automatically see. But they're definitely fantastic, and I'm glad that they've recorded them in this way. But it was in the renovation in the 1980s that they found some of these discoveries. And they even found children's shoes that were hidden underneath the staircase, pieces of cloth and iron objects, and like I said, even animal parts. They found a large amount of human hair that was uncovered in the fireplace, with a hare's foot that was found, which again can be luck. They also found a sheet of paper that was believed to have charms written on it. Now, the charms as well, this is what got Gwen ap Llewellyn in trouble in Wales, was the fact that she had a piece of paper in the back of her Bible with charms written on it to get rid of evil spirits, but it was done as a prayer, and that got her into trouble. Maybe this is why a lot of things are hidden. But one thing that's also that they had found was in the 1950s, they found a mummified cat that was found in one of the walls. So this dried cat, again, a way of protecting from spirits. It seems like the people who lived here were very superstitious, and you can't blame them. This is a time period where people feel a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of issues with disease, there's a lot of conflict and tensions. Maybe this is the way you want to protect yourself. And it's definitely staggering the amount of archaeology that they had from this area. And I think as a child, sort of hearing, if I heard about this, I would have been more in love. And we did learn more about the domestic life of those living there. We were shown the kitchen where the servants would cook, and we had to walk around as if we were from that period. So where the girls had to put their arms in front of them like this, and the men had to put their arms behind their backs. And it is definitely a fantastic place to go to. And even just the way they interact, the tour guides around, they actually are dressed up as well. So they really do take this into they really take this seriously. The amount of archaeology that's still being brought up there is absolutely fantastic, and it just makes you wonder what is more to be found. Me and Carl always talk about how these buildings are lacking attention and discussion because there's so much going on there, but it's something that people don't really go and look into. But definitely, I think this is something that's interesting. I think it adds to the paranormal activity, that sort of story with it, because I know a lot of people have brought up witches, for example, in terms of these witch marks. But I think it was just done as a way of people feeling like they could protect themselves, and you can't blame them. I'm sure if you look around in my house, my mum probably got the odd superstitious thing there. And I think it's something that gets passed down into the generations, but it gets changed slightly at each generation. So I don't think there's anything paranormal about it. It's just more a reflection of those who believe something. But looking at this house, you can definitely tell that there was some wealth there, especially with the fantastic pottery that was coming from the Severn Estuary, and the amount of coins that are being found there. This was wealthy, and there's a lot of story going along here in terms of conflict. This was a very important individual who wanted to exert that into their structure. So I thought we'd do this one here because this is quite a unique little manor house. It's quite unique in terms of the fact that it wasn't originally meant to be a manor house. Let me just check if I've got everything right. Okay. Until it was becoming a manor house. And there's a long story in history when it comes to this building, so it's quite interesting to actually look into this, and it's quite remarkable. This was a manor house that started off as a castle and eventually become a manor house. And just even looking at the images that we have here of this house and how fantastic it is, it's absolutely just beautiful to look at. It would be something that I would love to live in, with the beautiful hills and the lovely sky. The archaeology that's being brought up here is quite interesting. Again, there's a lot of written information, which is even more frustrating. This is a medieval fortified manor house. So the last one that we saw was semi-fortified. This is fully fortified, and is situated in the village of Tree Tower, which is modern-day Powys, in modern-day Powys. And this is a fantastic place that people actually have discussed. Just trying to get an discussion out of it, though, is very frustrating. When you have a look online, you have to delve deeper. But there is a local and national importance here. Like I said, it evolved from the adjacent Tree Tower castle site as well, and it was a very rare example of its type, because it shows the way the castle gradually developed into another significant type of building. This fortified manor house became this defended house, and it's rare for this to survive, because it escaped a lot of turbulent times in terms of wars and conflicts, and there was some damage or because of the English Civil War, but there was a total redevelopment over time, and absolutely fantastic. So I thought I had another image. Yes, I did. So the initial sort of construction of this dates to the early years of the 14th century. So see this here. This is the fantastic architecture that we have inside, and it's absolutely beautiful. It does look like something from a fairy tale, and I think they've done a very good way of presenting this to show you what it would have looked like. But you see those fantastic windows here that they're showing off this, the fact that they can afford this amazing craftsmanship. And even just down to this, almost looks like a gate that's coming down to protect. You can definitely see how this is a place where someone was exerting their identity of being quite wealthy. And when you look at buildings like this, you can understand why there's so much love and looking at this, because of how beautiful it is. The masonry that's on the walls in the fireplace area and the inside, and even just down to the windows, they're sort of showing this tower-like effect, and is even given a date of the 1300s. And this building is for to have this lovely floor hall that has this high roof, and a solar or private bed chamber, and a private living room. So this hall was served as a local court, I think, where people would sort of pay their fines and their tithes. And this is what we see in terms of the manor house. And you see that with William Rees when he talks about that with his book, how these manor houses played a very important role in the authoritative and the administrative part of these buildings, because they help function. This is where trade is also being pinpointed from these buildings. And you can see that trade is really good in these areas because they're using these places for storage, and they're paying their tax because they have to in terms of what they're going to trade. But looking at everything in terms of this, you see some fine craftsmanship in terms of the woods that's being used, in terms of the glass as well, how they're able to create these fantastic, really complex designs as well. And even just the stones on the floor, it's all well organized, and you can see that this person's really showing off here. And I think this is another way of the medieval periods of showing off their identity. It wasn't just the way that they dressed or how they had a reputation, it was more based on their structures as well and what that means. But if I go back to the other image, if it lets me. Oh, there you go. This is a very big structure, and this has seen a lot of history as well. So in the early 1400s, Owen Glyndwr had a revolt in Wales against the new King Henry IV, and the building was under a real threat here from the Welsh forces. And the castle was listed as defensible and a stronghold for the king in 1404, and to Sir James Berkeley successfully held off an attack. But it was directed at the castle, and the court escaped serious damage because it was directed more at the castle. But in the same year, English force that was led by Richard Beauchamp, which was an Earl of Warwick, he fought a Welsh army of Owain Glyndwr at the Battle of Mynyd Cymru, which we almost captured Glyndwr himself, and he was capturing his banner or his standard. The Welsh forces retreated down to the valley of the River Usk, but was laid in ambush at the pursuing English and engaged them in a very skirmish fight, and this was referred to as a battlefield. This army was chasing off the walls of the English. The English was fought away at the Monmouth town, and Owain Glyndwr talks about how he had this great fight here where they chased him up to the gate of Monmouth, and they were slain. The English were slain. But a decade later, this court was a local meeting point for the Welsh archers that left service in France under King Henry V, and they contributed to the English victory at Agincourt. And we talk about how even down to the roof beams, if you go there, the roof beams are beautifully decorated, and you can see how early this structure is. This castle in the early times was held by the Pritchard family, and they had extensive lands in Herefordshire for assisting William the Conqueror. And members of this family were sheriffs of Hereford, and they were able to marry into several great landed families as well. But when we get to the 1450s AD, the property was given to Sir Roger Vaughan by Sir Henry Herbert, which was the Earl of Pembroke, and his half-brother. And this William Herbert was the previous owner of this court and castle. But the property was to remain in the hands of successive generations of Vaughans for all of his heyday. Roger Vaughan was the richest commoner in Wales at the height of his career. And I think that's a really, I think for that time period as well, is a very impressive thing. And he clearly had really climbed to the top. But he wanted to refurbish this. I think he wanted to show off the fact that he was the richest commoner in Wales. And so we started to refurbish and develop this court. And this was a way of benefiting a prosperous man. And this is what we're left with, this building, this broadly speaking to us as we're seeing it today. But he modernised mostly the north range, where he was inserting the floor above the hall. He was turning the block into a two-storey building. And the lower story seems to have served as storerooms. There was a kitchen at the west end, and in the west range, he even had Dublin accommodation available. And he was building a brand new hall and solar and upper rooms as well. But Roger Vaughan was was on the Yorkist side in the Wars of the Roses in the mid-15th century. So there's another conflict that's going on here. I don't know why that dot came up then, but I apologise. So in the mid-1400s, he was fighting the Battle of Mortimer's Cross in 1461. And he was leading Owen Tudor to his execution at Hereford following the battle. And he quelled a rising in Carmarthenshire in 1465, and he was soon knighted. In 1471, he pursued Jasper Tudor following the Battle of Tewkesbury, but Tudor captured him, and he was beheaded at Chepstow Castle. Roger Vaughan's son and his heir, Sir Thomas Vaughan, he developed the court further. And the last quarter of the 1400s, he had an addition of a battlemented wall, and he had wall walks and a gatehouse, and this was enclosing this courtyard. So even more battle defences had been added. There was some improvements that were added in 1630 under Charles Vaughan, which was a sheriff of Bernock, in 1622 and in 1633. And he added stairways, he added cellars, and even added an alternative entrance to the building. And the court was passed to his son, Edward Vaughan, but he died without any issue, and he passed the estate to his sister and so on. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I apologise. But there was a lot of decline and neglect. It was sold in 1783 because they decided to take their occupancy to other properties as the family went on. And this was basically used by animals eventually. They were becoming stores and barns, and they were basically becoming a piggery. And this was not maintained. It was actually in very poor condition. But when it came to the 1900s, the building was close to collapse. It was in danger of it, and it was actually really vulnerable. But maintenance had taken place, and they were able to sort of show off how this was a value of medieval structure, how fantastic it was, and the amount of history that we are getting from this. So in 1929 was when they started an appeal for the government to purchase the building. In 1930s, it was saved and restored. I believe is now in the care of Cadu, but it's now open to the public. There's tours that goes on, people have wedding ceremonies here, and it was also shared for, it was also filmed in 2007 for the Sarah Jane Avengers, if anyone's ever interested in that, because I used to when I was little. They're fantastic buildings. It just makes you sort of look at these much differently. So if I can just get the further evidence in terms of what else has been found. So you can definitely see how there's also a glorious wooden roof that's in the Great Hall here, and this is where Sir Roger's high table was laid. This would have been very beautiful and oozing with richness. There was this impressive oak dresser that was there, and they have actually redone everything up inside this building to look like what it used to look like back in the day. But there was also there was this very strange lots of printed cloth here. There was strange sort of imagery on there that's meant to reflect the lives of the Vaughans. Yes, it is a modern reconstruction. This is something that they think that they would have shown off their identity. This is how they were able to do it. But when you look at Lancaig Fawr and you look at this one, you definitely see how there's a difference in these areas and how battlement was very important to these things. Now, I haven't really read many ghost stories of these buildings in Tree Tower Manor, but it was definitely interesting to see one of them, how it was believed that there was some sort of boy that used to run around the one of the Manor halls, and laughter would be heard. But again, this is something that you can definitely see different sort of experiences when you look at them online. But nonetheless, it's quite interesting to see. And seeing how this was served as a place of defending an individual, but it was also a place to live and show off and a place to socialise. It served that purpose quite well. And even down to the day, how it's just sort of been treated. There is a medieval kitchen, like I said. There's even a pantry and a buttery there as well. And they've even sort of done that up as if it would be like in the 1460s in its heyday, because that's when this really did thrive here. Looking at the archaeology, there has been pottery that has been found in the ground, and they have found some animal bones. But ultimately, they haven't really found much evidence. From what I can gather, it's been more focused on trying to reconstruct at this moment in time what it would have looked like, and possibly trying to understand its history before they do something like that. So we could see that some more of that in the future, and that's mostly just fingers crossed. But when you go inside, you realise that from looking at the beautiful cloth, looking at the beautiful windows, this grand building, big halls, the storage rooms, you understand how this was a place where there was no ordinary family. This was no ordinary home. This was a group of medieval buildings that were very rewarding to Wales and its history, but also shows how important this family was in this area, how much power they were able to show off in terms of their structures. And that's another way. They're not just as defensive features, but they're also a way of showing off who they want to be and put that off into their mind. And I think it's something that we do as humans. We also see a little bit of something shiny. We automatically think that this individual has a lot of wealth and power. And so this helps them in positions of authority. But it's definitely a fantastic place to look at, and definitely important when you see how this was important in terms of the connection with the river, how there was also Bristol ware that was being found here, which is the same as Lancaig Fawr, and it shows how important the trade was with Bristol, with South Wales in this time period, and how it actually only carried on afterwards. There's North Devon template ware that's being found here as well. I have a piece of that, and that's something that's really prevalent in the South Wales coast, and it shows that it's gone further upstream. These are areas that are important and clearly thrived because there was connections, and that's another thing that allows people to show off their power and wealth is connections, and how an area is meant to thrive is because of the connections. So definitely the interior is very interesting when you see that. And you can definitely see that they're trying to show off something else. It's almost like they're trying to show off more of the defensive feature, this false sense of security almost, and almost an illusion to anyone that experiences this building and sees how it looks well fortified. But the craftsmanship in every part, there's more than just stonemasonry going on here. There's woodwork as well. And it just makes you wonder what these could actually sort of say. There has been no witch marks that have been found here, unfortunately. But again, we've seen with Carrick Fire, that was found by accident. So maybe only time will tell whether we have the same with this as well. And these are beautiful structures. I think archaeologists who aim to study this, they aim to study the wealthy individuals of the past and how they were able to show off their identity in not just their clothes, in not just how they write or what they get written about them or their paintings, is about their domestic setting as well, and how this is meant to show their connections with people over the Severn Estuary, but also beyond. It allows them to show off how much wealth that they have in the area, and also sort of using all of this to have authority over people in the area as well. And these are buildings that have seen turbulent times in the Welsh past. And it's understandable that there's going to be ghost stories and folklore tied to them. And even if there was supernatural, you can only understand why they'd be there if this is a period of turbulent time history, of the uncertainty. But you can also understand the witch marks if this is a time of uncertainty. Scary times is a sense of control, almost having control of the situation. But these manors have unique architecture, more so True Tower. And again, it just shows more about the identity of the individual and who lived there and what they were trying to tell us and what they were trying to communicate that is still there today. So next week, I was thinking of two things. I'm not completely sure at the moment whether to look at these really old castles that are now ruined, or to even look at mostly Welsh witches, which is what I was thinking of doing for next week, or even just looking at certain hoards. But I know that those are the three sort of lessons that we'll be having in the next 3 weeks, and that's something to look forward to. So if I stop sharing now, Anne, is there anything that you'd like to ask or add into all of this? Oh, Anne, you're on mute. Apologies.
I was just, interested to see where it is, because, my husband always talks about Tritower Castle. He'd been there, along with going to Skenfrith and, further up. I think that's further up towards Brecon, I think, is it? Mm-hmm. And, it just makes you wonder, like, if it was a castle and then it was turned into a fortified house, so people probably didn't really have any fear of being attacked in that era, but they still wanted, like you say, to show their power, really, their wealth, by fortifying it and making it into a fine sturdy building sort of thing. My family name, my grandmother's name was Pritchard.
Oh,
yeah.
You could be involved in the history there, Anne.
They were in that area, but also there was someone else's. Yeah, I mean, and Vaughan, is a very famous name, a Welsh name as well. And it's interesting to find out about these places.
Yeah.
To find where the powerful lived.
Yeah, definitely. Seen one side of it, obviously. I'm more interested in finding the other side of the ordinary man, but sometimes it can be quite difficult to see that. But it is quite interesting to see how rich people do show off their identity, Anne. And
they would all be like farm labourers or tide farmers, and they would just work the land for these people. Yeah, they had a living. My like that's what my grandparents, they had a rented farm, you know.
Yeah.
They just rented it and farmed the land for whoever owned it, I suppose. And but they weren't allowed to own land in those early days, were they?
No.
They were only given a certain amount, like everyone was given a certain amount.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, you know, the poorer people. So it's a lot to learn, isn't it? It's a lot attached to it. So
definitely, I think the identities that the nice thing to look at. I think is sort of screaming a message, whether you sort of see it and recognise straight away or it's done subconsciously. I think they're quite good in sort of creating an illusion. And I have sort of read about castles that look like a Motte and Bailey, but it turns out to be something that was done quite modern, just to show off power and strength in amongst it all as well. So thank you, Anne. Richard, anything that you'd like to ask or add?
Yeah, it was actually Tree Tower or whatever was on TV last night.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. It was some program about people who were working nights.
Oh.
And these guys were checking for bats. Apparently, there's loads of different sorts of bats there.
Oh, wow.
Somebody wanted to film a TV program or a film there. These guys were checking for the bats and everything. If they were really rare breed sort of thing, they wouldn't be able to film there.
Oh.
On TV.
Did it look like it was? Did it look like it was just? Was it like derelict or was it?
Oh no, it was
being done up. Is it?
Yeah, I didn't notice that sort of furniture in it, but it was all in good, you know.
Yes, there's only a small amount that has had a reconstruction, but on a whole, the majority of it has just been left because it was barns.
It was all solid on the bits of the fireplaces, and you know, they were looking at the chimneys and sort of thing, but.
Scampering everywhere and little demons.
It'd be interesting to see what, you know, is it run by anyone? Is it like National Trust? Or?
I believe it's held by Cadw.
Oh, right, okay.
So I think they're the ones that are sort of involved in trying to put more protection and sort of reconstruct everything, but it's taken quite a slow time.
They haven't got any money.
Yeah, because it's up by Crick Hull.
Yeah. It's definitely a beautiful little structure, a lot of history to it as well.
Because the other one that's really interesting is the one in Lammy-Hangle.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was quite a good program on that. I think with Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen.
Ooh.
Oh,
did a program on it for about an hour long.
Oh.
With the people who had, you know, the last people to do it up. I think it was like a sort of bed and breakfast.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. I think Carl was talking about that in the last class about how we see certain sites being used for other purposes, sort of a graveyard for a playground and sort of chapels that are turned into flats or a house. You definitely see how the history's added onto it with a different purpose that is given. And it would be lovely to sort of live in, I think, in an old chapel myself.
It's a beautiful house. Lammy-Hangle.
Yeah, beautiful. A little bed and breakfast like that would be absolutely gorgeous. So thank you, Richard. And Pat, anything that you'd like to ask or add before we go?
Oh, that was very interesting. Makes me want to go see some of them. You know?
Definitely, we should have some trips, the smaller trips. Thank you. Lancaig Fawr is my favourite Pat. I definitely do recommend it.
I haven't been there.
They're quite good.
I haven't been there. I don't know why I haven't been there, you know, but you know, when the children were little, I should have gone, you know, but I didn't.
Definitely recommend.
I think I didn't know where Nelson was. It was a strange place to go to.
Oh, yes, I've been there several times. You get lost getting there, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember my son going there with the school.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah, that's what started my love. But it's nice to go there when it's sunny and have a picnic in the outside. That's what I liked about it all. It just reminds me of summer, really, especially sites like that, and just being sat there eating my little packed lunch. But thank you, everyone, and I'll see you next week, and I'll see you tomorrow, Anne. So take care, everyone, and have a lovely evening.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.